we're writing a method called mode, and it returns the most frequently occurring element of an array of integers. We can assume that the array has at least one element passed in, it's pretty good, and that every element in the array has a value between 0 and 100 inclusively. We want to break ties by choosing our lower value. So I'm thinking that we do is we have an array that stores values between 0 and 100. And then with this, we can always have the most tallied kind of value be the value that we're going to return. And we can always look to the lower value whenever we are returning. So we have an example here. If this is passed, we should return 15 because it's the lowest value. So let's make our program and see if it works. We'll have a public. It's going to return a type int called mode, and we're going to take an array of not strings but integers, obviously, because we have int. And inside of here, we're going to make this array for 0 to 100 inclusively. Now, remember, for arrays, we should have at least one more than what we're dealing with because we have to include this 0. So, because we have to include 0, we'll call this array store, and we'll set it equal to a new int where we have 101 inside of here. Now, we are going to want a variable that is able to store the current amount that we have stored in our index here. So let's say we have like 2 15s. And that's like the most that we have. We are going to want something that stores this 2 in here. So we'll do an int count. We'll just do counter store, and this should be equal to 0 initially. I'll take rid of that comment, counter store. And then we're also going to want a variable that stores the element so that we can return it. We'll do int element, and we'll set this equal to 0 as well. Now we want a for loop that'll run through our entire array. So int a is equal to 0, a is less than our arr.length, and then we will just a plus plus this, and then go inside of this for loop. Now we are going to want to increment whatever value we are currently looking at in here, and that's determined by whatever element is at a. So we want to put inside of store whatever element we are currently looking at, like this, and just increment it. So essentially what happens is if we have a 15 in here, we are going to get 15 from this. So we want to store at 15 and then just increment. So inside of this array, the 15th index will just be 1 because we've incremented this by 1. If our value here that we are looking at, because remember it's 1, but if it's 2, it's currently going to be greater than this previous one that was just like 27 if we have only one tally of 27. So we want this stored element right here, whatever element we're currently looking at. Like for example, I said if we just put in a 1, we have 1 here. Well, if it's greater than our current counter store, what we're going to want to do is set our counter store to be equal to this store a, like this. So it's going to be equal to this right here because the counter store is greater than our previous countered value. So that's how we would kind of get the index with the most. And then that would of course mean that element should equal to this value right here. I believe that's all we need. So we can end this if statement, end this for loop. We can then return element once we're done with everything. End this function, press submit. We've passed 6 out of 6 tests. So that seems to be good in solving this practice it exercise 7.5 mode.